Oh, sorry, Chris. Yeah, taking his head off. It's slightly exasperating. Do you see where I'm going here? I've gone on a bit of a rant. Hello. Today, we're going to be talking about the UCI's new handlebar legislation. And rather than being just another chimp banging a drum and throwing my hands in the air and waving them frantically because I'm unhappy about it, I want us to get into the actual nuts and bolts and the nitty gritty as to why they've done it and whether there's actually any rationale behind why they've done it. The problem is the UCI's website is not the easiest to navigate. Clarification of technical regulation. Nope, that's not it. Technical innovations. Nope, that's not it. Frame sets. No, it's not going to be frame set. Telemetry approval procedure. No. Measurement station. Technological fraud. Track equipment. After about 15 minutes of Googling and going backwards and forwards over the UCI's website, we found this. And basically says the UCI would like to provide further clarification on the recent amendments to its regulations regarding equipment design, which were announced following decisions taken in this area by its management committee. What, the bigots, you mean? These changes are part of an overall approach aimed at ensuring ever safer and fairer competition conditions in a context marked by rapid technological advances and significant increase in racing speeds that could impact rider safety. Several of these measures respond to the recommendations made by SAFE-R, the organisation dedicated to improving safety in men's and women's professional road cycling. Women's? Really? Okay, whatever. They were developed following extensive consultation with riders, teams and organisers, probably all men, including through the distribution of questionnaires of the entire peloton, again, probably all men. The decision to introduce a minimum handlebar width of 400 millimetres measured between the two outer edges of the handlebar, that's at the hood, and at the drop, all right, as well as a minimum width of 32 centimetres measured between the brake levers, between the inner edges of the levers, is in line with this approach. This corresponds to the minimum width of 38 centimetres from centre to centre, a commonly used standard in the cycling industry. Yes, for men. This rule will apply from 1st of January for road and cyclocross events with a mass start, for the track events, These changes defined in consultation with stakeholders aim to ensure that all athletes, regardless of their body type, can compete with equipment that is both high performance and safe. I said I wasn't going to beat my chest and wave my hands in the air frantically, but what a colossal load of right, okay, so first and foremost, if you fit a very, very narrow handlebar to a tall person where the handlebars are elevated off the ground a significant proportion, I'm talking somebody who's as tall as Tom, who's like 6'2", if you put that individual on a 32 centimetre handlebar, there is going to be a loss of control. It will typically result in less stability, which in my opinion isn't really going to impact the likes of seasoned professionals. I'm talking Cat 4 racers and the guys racing around Richmond Park with their hair's on fire. So from a safety standpoint, I can totally understand why this is being introduced. However, as usual, the main group of people that are going to be negatively impacted by this legislation are, of course, women. It's quite apt that we're filming this video today because, like yesterday, I had a lady who came to see me. She was 5'0". This is the jig set up from yesterday. I haven't touched it. This is 32 centimetre handlebar because she measured 32 centimetres across her shoulder width and as a result needs a much, much narrower handlebar. This is just another blatant disregard for women in cycling. It's the other reason why we don't have crank length short enough. Funnily enough, the SRAM rep is upstairs at the moment and I was just shouting at him about why we haven't got 155mm cranks. Anyway, I've gone on a bit of a rant. So we've always measured the same way. It's always across the acromion process. It's the distal part of the scapula. It's this bit that sticks out here. And Chris here is quite a narrow, quite a slender chap. And Chris measures 32, 33 centimeters across the acromion process. It's that distance or that measurement that we use to lead us as to which handlebar width the rider might be riding. And then through comparative testing, i.e. trying them with narrower, trying them with wider, get an understanding of their personal preference. Most men measure between 39 and 41 centimeters, rendering a 42, which is the legacy most common size handlebar, too wide. Women, on the other hand, seem to vary significantly more. Most women measure between 31, 32 centimeters all the way up to 38 centimeters. Which I find amusing because the 38 centimeter is now the widest you can possibly have. And actually, I would say it is a particularly broad woman who is going to measure 38 centimeters across the acromion process. What we need to consider here is what are the problems that an excessive handlebar width is going to create, particularly for women. It's commonly associated with neck and shoulder issues. It's commonly associated with an inability to reach the brake levers. So the UCI harking on about how it's going to be safer, well, it's not if the riders can't reach the brake levers. It typically also results in a rotation of the wrist, which can lead to numb hands, which means that there's going to be loss of sensation, which can also lead to loss of control, which also means it's less safe, as well as an inability to look ahead because of the excessive neck and shoulder tension associated with a bar width that's too wide. So if you can't look ahead, you can't see where you're going, you can't see if a car's coming out in front of you, it's also less safe. Do you see where I'm going here? This, it might only impact riders racing at a higher level or at a reasonable level for now. But what it is going to do is impose restriction on product development. So we're going to see less and less handlebars being made in smaller sizes. Like with this lady yesterday, she ended up buying a Sato from me, a custom bike, because frankly, at 5 foot, there isn't a bike on the market that actually exists that will fit her properly, that will ride optimally. And I was trying to find a 32 centimeter handlebar that accepted internal cable routing. Guess what? Doesn't exist. Apart from one or two very, very specific, very, very unique, aimed at racing handlebars, which are, kind of touted as, being more aerodynamic. And to be honest with you, I'm more about ergonomics than I am about aerodynamics, on the grounds that I can't quantify aerodynamics. I don't have a wind tunnel yet. So again, the losers in this situation are going to be small women and smaller men. And just when I thought things were starting to get better, 34 centimeter handlebars, for instance, are becoming easier and easier to get. Let's give some kudos actually to FSA for this super compact handlebar, which is now UCI illegal. The 36 centimeter iteration of this handlebar actually measures 34 centimeters from center to center across the hood. And it's also, most importantly, ACR compatible, so you can fit it to a lot of integrated modern road bikes. But this is now illegal. And I'm hoping, FSA, if you're watching, please, please, please don't stop making these. There are so many people out there that really, really benefit from this handlebar. And while we're on the subject, can you make a carbon version as well, please? So it can't be more than 40 centimeters outer to outer at the drop. At the drop? Or at the hood? Hang on a minute. So you're not allowed any flare. Even I'm confused because, if you look at this diagram, this is straight off of the UCI's website. They're saying 400 mil at the hood, but also 400 mil at the drop. But this is the image that they've used is a flared handlebar. So they're not the same length, are they? What this is saying to me is that you're now no longer allowed a flared handlebar. I personally, I don't really care for flare. The gravel fraternity will be rolling their eyes, but I don't personally see any value in it having owned flared handlebars. But this is suggesting that you can't have any flare, or, that doesn't make any sense. If you have a maximum width of 400 mil here and 400 mil here, you can't even make there be a difference between the inside of the hood and the outside of the drop. 50 mil, you just can't do it because am I reading this wrong? Maybe I haven't had enough coffee. I can't really wrap my head around that, to be totally honest. The thing I can't wrap my head around the most is just how completely inadequate this is going to be for women. What needs to happen is not a reversal of these rules, but there need to be morphological allowances for it. So for instance, the 5 centimeter setback rule, so the UCI states that you have to have the saddle's nose 5 centimeters behind the bottom bracket. Now, someone like Nero Quintana, who's the same height as Francis K, he's about that big, cannot run his saddle 5 centimeters behind the bottom bracket because he's going to end up with knee pain. And actually, geometry of his bike will dictate that you probably can't even do that. You'd have the saddle on a 25mm setback post slammed as far back on the rails as it'll go, obviously depending on the saddle. So there are morphological allowances for saddle setback. I would urge the UCI to strongly consider who they've been talking to and where they're getting their information from, because as far as I'm concerned, no women have been consulted in this. And with all of this of me gassing about, if only we had a woman's opinion. Claire's one of our bike fitters here at Bicycle.
Hello.
So, I'll tell you what, firstly, let's measure you.
Yeah. Just
relax for us. Across the chromium process. Claire measures 34 centimetres. Up yours, UCI. Claire, what bar width do you ride?
Currently a 38. I used to ride a 36 and it feels bad riding a 38.
Yeah, right?
Yes.
Because Claire races at a high level. Do you have any opinions on this UCI?
Yeah, I think it's a bit stupid.
Yeah.
It just feels like I've got even more stress and pressure going through my shoulders. Mm-hmm. My wrists feel compromised. I've only gone to wider just purely out of a bar choice situation at the moment. I am going to go back to narrow because it just feels more comfortable. I don't feel any differences in handling, which I know is a concern for the UCI.
Yeah.
But I fit quite a lot of women here, and I rarely ever fit a woman on wider than a 36 centimetre bar. It's rare, it's very rare. Most of the time it's a 36 or a 34. And that's centre to centre. They generally find it more comfortable. And yeah.
So there you have it. Don't just take my word for it. As bike fitters here, we're all about fitting for the people. And yeah, 38 centimetre bar centre to centre is not going to work for most women.
No.
I think we both agree.
I would agree too.
Amazing. Thank you, Claire. Excessive width of the bar is going to reduce a number of riders' ability to reach the brake levers, because there's a reach around joke here. You reach around the handlebar to get at the brake lever, so it results in an inability to reach the brake levers, typically resulting in a loss of control. We're going to see more women with neck, shoulder, hand issues, an inability to look ahead, as I've already said. The takeaway from this entire video should be that the UCI's latest handlebar legislation is yet another blatant disregard for women in the sport. Thank you very much for watching. I'm sorry to end on such a dull note. Please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you for the next one.